tell you that story after.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh, all right, everyone. Welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. My name is Mike McKay, based in the Jacksonville, Florida market. If anyone's in the Jacksonville market wants to reach out, feel free to send me a DM. And we are really actively buying still in the Florida market, even though a lot of other people have pulled back. So if you have any deals you want to sell, send me a message and I'll shoot you our buy box. Each and every Friday, we host this show where we interview people who are changing the game of real estate all over the country. This week, oh, and it is a live show, guys, so feel free to comment with any questions for our guests to answer. This week, we have my friend Evan Rugen, who's in the Hudson Valley, New York market, and he's going to share a lot of info about what's going on up there and what he's up to. So, Evan, welcome to the show.
Mike McKay, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Cool, man. Um, so I always kind of start things off in the same way. I know your story, but everyone here doesn't. What got you started, or how did you get started in real estate?
Yeah, so I guess I've always had sort of like an entrepreneurial mindset. At first it was just for fun, and then sort of became out of necessity. So I'm originally from upstate New York, from the Hudson Valley region. Um, and I took the traditional route, did a lot of entrepreneurial things, growing up. Would go around my neighborhood and like wash windows and sell lemonade and things of that nature. Go to college for one semester. Don't really love the prospects, sort of see the writing on the wall. I'm living in upstate New York. I need to get to New York City as soon as possible. So I meet an elderly couple at the restaurant job I was working. They're an elderly couple living on the Upper West Side in New York City. They said, "Hey, you can move in with us. You just have to, earn your keep," because I didn't have any money. So they're like, "All right, you can move with us, but every morning you have to walk the dogs at 7 a.m., water the plants, make us breakfast. You can do whatever you want for 12 hours, and then you have to come back at 7 p.m., make dinner, walk dogs, water the plants." So that was my intro to New York. I'm 19 years old at the time. I don't even have a fake ID, so I can't even go out and meet anybody. So, and I'm not even like, I don't even like qualify for a restaurant job because I'm so young looking. So I had heard a kid in my class at my one semester of college who got his real estate license, and I assumed you had to be 21, but he was 18. I'm like, all right, let me give that a crack. So I got my real estate license, and keep in mind, I'm selling real estate, which is like the biggest purchase a lot of people make. I'm unfamiliar with the market. I'm 18 years old, so I was probably the worst real estate agent ever. Um, but did that for 3 months until I got my first deal. Got my first deal for $500. Remember, I held the check. It was 310 East Second Avenue D. I don't know if you know that building, Mike. The Adele.
I think
It
I,
was
I think I've been there. Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
yeah, Unit 3G, and I got an advance from my um, broker, and I can remember being like so. I wasn't poor because poor is for life. I was just broke, just having no money, and eating McDonald's every single day, and like they would be like, "Oh, can you go grab groceries?" And I would come back with nothing, and I'd be like, "Oh, I forgot." But the reality is, like, there was a credit card minimum, and I didn't have any money, so I got that first check. That was one thing led to another, and started closing a bunch of deals. Started renting a lot of apartments. Moved out of there. Got an apartment in East Harlem with 3 other roommates. I'm 19 years old, living with like a Vietnam veteran, like a hairstylist, all different strange people. But I was in New York, and I could do whatever I wanted, and it was incredible. And I think at my real estate height, I rented over 500 apartments. The New York
Well,
Times called me
let's back up
yeah.
from how you got
Okay.
from there, living
Yeah.
with, $500 first commission check all the way to
Yeah.
renting 500 apartments. That's a big gap. So like what
Yeah.
happened to allow you to move from one first
Um,
apartment rental after
yeah.
3 months of work to that volume?
Yeah. There was a few different catalysts that happened that led me to that. I remember there was one time I was sitting in my office late at night, and someone called the office phone. People still use office phones. This was like 2015, and I don't want to reveal his name, but he was like, "Hey, my name's blank. I just bought 27 buildings in the East Village. You're working late. I want you to be my broker." I'm 19 years old. He doesn't know who he's talking to on the other side of the phone. So I partnered up with an elder statesman who had a little bit more gray hair. We meet up with this guy. We represent his entire
He
portfolio.
he
Um,
called you? I never knew that story. No
he called
way.
he called the office line. He called
The
the
office.
Marone Properties office line. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was a big catalyst. And at the time, he had called the office before, and everyone thought his pricing was crazy. But we're like, we'll take the account, we'll try it, and
Yeah.
yeah, it really snowballed, and that was our
Well,
biggest account, and
yeah.
we did that for for about a year and a half, and then he started falling behind in payments. He started selling off the portfolio, so we met all these other owners. So we lost a big part of that account, but we became diversified with other operators and owners in New York City, and very
Yeah.
quickly we became like the largest residential rental agents in downtown Manhattan.
Yeah. So yeah, so talk about that, right? Like you said, like for people who aren't familiar with like the New York City rental market, and you say, he was an account of yours. Like, what do you mean by that? And what did you mean by like his pricing was crazy?
Yeah, so he wanted like $4,500 for a 3 bedroom. At the time, the market was like $3,500. But there was like interesting things he did with the renovations. Like he had barn doors and exposed brick and things of that nature. And at that time, if you could get something on Street Easy, which is the listing platform that's now owned by Zillow, that was king. So we just wanted to get online so we could get some leads. And then what was your other question?
Yeah, you just said like an account, right? I mean, not everyone here knows New York City
Okay,
real estate, so what do you mean by that?
right. An account is like a landlord or a real estate developer who hires you to represent the property.
Got it. So
Yeah.
you have these listings right in the beginning before he, obviously runs into financial trouble, and how are you moving these properties? Because they're $3,800 properties. I mean, I remember these listings years ago in New York City, and I was like, who's renting these things? Like, how are you
Yeah,
how
man.
are you selling these rentals to people?
Oh man, we would do everything, and it only takes one, is what we would say. These rents were absolutely sky high. Like we're offering like 3 months free at a very very high gross rent, so you would use to refinance. Um, and we would put tape down on the floor to measure what a full size bed is and what a queen size bed is. We would fully furnish every single apartment so people could visualize it, and
No
it
way.
took a lot of showing because these were micro apartments, but eventually someone would rent them, and on the by us renting that apartment, that is so much value to the developer, so he compensated us very well.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
So then
yeah,
what? He starts to sell all. He runs into financial issues, right? And he starts
yeah.
to sell off parts of that portfolio, and then you start to take over the accounts for other owners, or?
Exactly. They're like, who are you guys and how are you guys getting these rents? Um, and we know how to maximize every square foot. So we start taking on their accounts. Simultaneously, me personally, and this is sort of my first like real estate venture, I started renting apartments where landlords I found were underutilizing the space. So I would, rent apartments and then release them by the room or add a wall or add certain furnishings. And that became another side business where I was able to hire a lot of agents that like from upstate New York. Like, hey, they're like, I don't have a place to live, but I'll work 7 days a week. I'm like, great, I have housing for you, really, really inexpensively. So they
Okay,
began working for us, renting these apartments, but also were living in the portfolio that I created.
interesting. So it was like kind of like an arbitrage play there. Like these landlords
Yeah.
just didn't understand the value of what they had, and you were making a spread by renting it by the room.
Exactly, exactly. And this was 2015 before rental arbitrage or Airbnb arbitrage was everywhere. There wasn't really anybody talking about this. I would walk in, the feeling. You walk into an apartment or you walk into a house and you just see the potential,
Yeah,
and they didn't see it. So I would sign the lease, and that was my first like lesson on learning about creating value and adding value to homes.
yeah. So going back to all those accounts you brought on and those strategies that you used. I mean, I remember in the rental broker business in New York City, even the sales broker business, I mean, there is a ton of people trying to chase these accounts, right? I mean, they're valuable. I mean, you're renting apartments, you're making $5,000 fees, $8,000 fees for each rental. Like, how do you think you were able to accomplish this, but all the thousands of other people who are trying to do the same thing in New York City can't get those accounts?
Yeah, I mean, and you're it's a very good question, Mike, and that's sort of a reason why I moved on from that industry is because in business you want to avoid competition. You know, if it's not good if you go to do something and you know 10 other people who are already doing it.
Sure.
And to take that point even further, it's like you want to find a business, or if you're just worried about cash flow, you want to find a business where you're almost embarrassed to tell people what it is, because because what does a sexy business find? Even if you don't have competition, if it's a sexy business, it will still you will still be competing with smart and competent people. If you get into the diaper business, no one wants to do that. The trash business, it's
Yeah.
like there's so much margin, so much cash flow in those things, simply based on no one wants to tell, no one wants to, no one wants to do that. So you have no
Right.
competition. Um, but back to your original question, I mean, yeah, I mean, we would differentiate ourselves by, hiring, the most expensive photographer, professional photos of every single unit. Um, we would have professional team photos at the end of every listing. We
Yeah.
would hire virtual assistants to answer every single lead, within a minute of when it came in. We had to work 7 days a week, so it was purely you were purely trading time for money,
Yeah.
which can drive you crazy. Incredible book I suggest everyone to read if you're in business is Zero to One by Peter Thiel, and he talks about this. He's like, and if you're in pure competition, it will just drive you insane, it'll drive you
Yeah.
crazy, because
Yeah.
that's the only thing you can focus on. That's the only thing you can focus on is this, and in other businesses, you can think about other things.
Yeah. So you're doing that for a while. I mean that was your thing for a while in New York City. Like, what was your next transition after this? I mean, at what point did you start doing different stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, the first sort of toe in the water was the rentals, was the rental arbitrage, and I wasn't making any money on it because I was renting to my friends who worked for me, but I
Okay.
saw the value there. Um, October of 2019, I bought my first property. I didn't
Okay.
know anything. I didn't have any. Actually, didn't have any credit because I didn't go to college. I'd never really taken out a loan, so didn't have that going for me. So I bought a property all cash for $48,000, and I bought that October of 2019, and then obviously March of 2020, 4 months later, COVID hits, and Jack Yankitis stayed with them for about 4 months at this beautiful Fort Lauderdale mansion, and I had time to reflect on life and think about, like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, what do I want to tell my future kids what I do? And I was renovating this house at the time. I bought it for 48,000. I put in 150,000. It reappraised for 400,000. I got 3% debt, and it grosses like $75,000 in Airbnb. So I'm like, wow, just this one transaction, the inputs and outputs are not correlated compared to renting apartments. It's like you kind of know how much money you're going to make. It's like
Yeah.
there's really exponential scale with real estate.
Yeah. No, for sure. So you do that first one, right? You're kind of sitting
Right.
there like Fort Lauderdale, reflecting on what you want to do going forward.
Exactly. New
What
York City is
happened?
burning.
New York City, yes. We're all gone. We're
Yeah.
all in Florida or
Yeah. Where were
Connecticut or
you? Where were you? Did you went to Connecticut?
I was in Connecticut at first, and then I came to Florida in October of that year to
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Jackson.
And you just moved straight, and then is that really when you started your wholesaling like venture?
Yeah, that's when I started doing off-market stuff. I was doing
Wow.
a lot of
Very
Airbnb
cool.
stuff before, for years before that. But yeah, when I came down here, I was
Yeah.
like, I actually needed to do a 1031 exchange, and there was no good
I
deals on the
remember
market.
that.
So
Yeah, you had that
it was
property in.
like everything's out of sheer necessity, right? And it's like I gotta find a deal.
Yeah,
So and then I like didn't actually get one in time, but I was like, wow, like this thing actually works. Like people are willing to sell properties below market value if I just like reach out to them
yeah,
and ask. I mean, it's not
yeah,
that easy, but like
yeah,
it somewhat
yeah,
is. Um,
yeah, yeah.
so you're reflecting for Lauderdale, like what's the next step that you take? I mean, you start, you get to finish that renovation, obviously, but what's next from that point?
So we finished the renovation. I mean, I almost lose my ass in the property. I mean, I put in, I'm 25 years old. I had saved $200,000 of liquidity to renovate this home, and at the same time, I don't really have the revenue of real estate coming in. Also, my all my rental apartments in New York, all my friends moved out, so I'm stomaching the rents there. So that's an additional like $40,000 in overhead. So unfortunately, that's when I do my best work, like back against the wall, like got to figure this out. Like I call, like it's almost like going into monk mode. Like you got to shut off everything and dial in, and it's like do or die, do or die. And that's sort of the point I'm at now. It's like I've never really had I only had really one job where it was directly correlated to the work I did. My first job when I was 13, I was a gardener. I was like worked at a nursery. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is horrible. This is terrible. And then I got into like the restaurant game for a little bit. I did that from like 13 to 18. And like there were some tips and there was a little entrepreneurial things you could do there. But at this point, you're just at the point of no return, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I guess what was the next step? So yeah, I was on the balls of my ass. I was hustling. I barely secured this. I was still working on wrapping up this renovation. Um, I moved. I came back to New York May of 2020 to see what landlords I could work with, what cash flow I can string together. And it was just very very difficult at
Yeah.
that time. No one's in New York, everyone's leaving. So just scraped together some dollars, and then I refinanced on that first property, and I got a check for I think $313,000, and I'm like, damn. I can just remember writing in this journal. I'm a big proponent of journals, just writing, just make it to
Yeah.
the refinance, make it to the refinance,
I love it.
every single day. Just make it. All just paying off creditors, $15 here, $20 here, just to make it, just to make it by.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just hustling. Yeah,
Yeah. So you get back there, you scrounge some money. The refinance hits, right? You were scrounging money
yeah,
together. Now you got 313 grand liquid and a property
right,
that's
right.
making you some money on an
Yeah,
Airbnb.
yeah, yeah.
What's what do you do from that point?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, I took off some high leverage debt to get that over the finish line. I think I had a $75,000 construction line out there. I paid him off, and at the end of the day, I was probably sitting after everyone was paid off and I was back stable. I think I was sitting with like $200,000. So I had that, and I'm like, I don't want to be a rental agent anymore. Like
Sure.
I've done this for so long. It was great. I still do one building. Um, but I had a friend who was sort of flipping properties, and he put a property on my radar. It was a vacant hotel. So now we're in like August of 2020. No, we're in like April of 2021. We're in that. That's
Okay.
where we're sort of at. So
Yeah.
I had loved wholesaling. I loved the idea of it, finding things off market. I love data and love real estate and just creating value and seeing a vision. And I had a friend from the Albany area, which if you don't know, it's probably at the Hudson Valley. That's probably like an hour away. But he was seeing a girl in the Hudson Valley, and he drove by this hotel. It's been vacant since 2003. They
Okay.
have not operated at all since 2003. Um, it is on a lake. Like literally, you walk in there and there's articles from 2003, and nothing has been touched in nearly
Wow.
20 years in this place. It's falling
Wow.
apart, and it's on a lake. And he's like, "Hey, like, what do you think about this thing?" I'm like, "Honestly, I don't know," but I knew the owners, so I contacted the owners, and they're like, "Hey, like, actually, we're thinking about selling." I'm like, "Dope." And I had watched like 2 videos on YouTube of how to wholesale real estate. So it's like, okay, just
I need.
just pretend you're a buyer and put it under contract. Okay, cool. I can do that. So I just like, and what I call that is just like irrational confidence. It's like, it's
Yeah.
almost like when you're 19 or 20 years old. I don't know if you ever had a fake ID, but like, you just have to like, just like you like show up and just pretend that you're of age. Like, you just got to be confident. You got to be confident.
You gotta play
That's
the part,
a
man.
big part of the game. Yeah, you got to play the part. So I had no idea what I was doing. We put it under contract. They had one other group with a bunch of stipulations. They had the bunch of they'd been going back and forth with this group for 3 months. We put it under contract. They had it under contract for 750. We put it under contract. They voted that contract. We put it under contract for 775. I'm like, great. What do we do now? I have no database, no systems, no CRM, nothing. So I I contacted every single person on the lake. I made like 550 phone calls personally, no virtual assistants, and then I
Yeah.
contacted every single hotel within a 100-mile radius.
Okay.
And we got one response. Um, and the guy, I'm not gonna say his name. He showed up. He sparked a cigarette. Like, who is this guy? He's like, I want it. Like, okay. And I guess he'd been driving by this place for 20 years and he could never get his hands on it. And
Huh.
we got an all cash offer. We got an all cash offer within a week for $900,000. We made $125,000 in about 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, lights, let's go.
Shit's real. Yeah.
Yeah, shit's real, exactly. And I still
Did
remember
he
getting.
close? Did he close?
Yeah,
He
he
closed.
closed. Yeah, yeah, it's done. Yeah, I have a check right over there for the deposit. I don't even know the name of it. I think it's called the double close, where they wanted a deposit, but I didn't want to put any money down, so we got the deposit from the end buyer and gave it to the seller. Is that a
Right.
double close?
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if that's called a double close. I think that's just called using the
I don't know.
Empire's money for the deposit, which
Yeah,
I don't even know if you're allowed
yeah,
to do, but whatever. All good. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
it happened.
yeah. But
So,
no, he handed me a $77,000 check. I'm like, damn, this is real. We went under contract with him, and then title, whatever. And I think it was like a week and a half later we closed on the property.
wow, that's awesome. So first deal is a
Yeah,
commercial wholesale too. I think that's kind of unusual compared to a lot of people.
commercial commercial hotel wholesale on
Yeah.
15 acres lakefront. Yeah,
Yeah, that's unique. Is it done? Is
yeah.
it up and live, this
The,
hotel now?
no, they have not done anything since they bought it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I drove by it. Do
I mean,
you have an
Jonathan Jacobs
LLC?
asked, "Did you have an LLC at this point?"
Yes. Every single property we buy is a new LLC.
Yeah, that's an easy, quick $200.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not personally on it. Okay, so you get this hotel,
Yeah.
125K wholesale deal, first deal, pretty unique deal.
Yeah.
What's your next step?
Next step is, so that probably closed. That was April. That probably closed like June of 2021. I'm like,
Okay,
all right, let's do it again. Let's find more real estate.
okay,
So we so I'm still very much a one-man show at this point. And I credit actually a lot of my success in recently to TikTok. Um, I've reached so many different people. A lot of people that work with me now. We've
mm.
purchased many homes actually off TikTok, and it really helps with brand recognition when people know who you are. But so
You've
we're
had buyers
in.
reach out to you, or sorry, sellers reach out to you from TikTok.
Yeah, I'll get
Oh,
there. So
okay,
August of 2021, we put our second property under contract. That's another property in Hudson. Not a crazy deal. Not insane. We bought it for 170. It was on the market. I think like I took a construction loan this time. Put in $65,000 worth of renovation. So I'm 230 with expenses. I'm probably in at like 250, and a reappraised at 350. We started off with short-term rentals. The building was kind of old, so it did well, but got a good amount of complaints. And I'm like, look, I just want to refi this. So we just placed it to a long-term tenant. for I think like $3,300 a month. So we could refi.
Yep.
Um, and that's sort of why I chose the Hudson Valley as the tenant profile. Is like if Airbnb shut down tomorrow, there's still a bunch of people that will rent it on a month-to-month basis. If that shut down tomorrow, there's still a bunch of people that are rented on a long-term basis. So like
Yeah.
I see a lot of people. I mean, get articles all the time about oh Airbnb's dying. It's like yeah, in these huge markets like Orlando or I don't know Joshua Tree. It's extremely saturated, and there's a lot of institutional money in those markets. It's like
Sure.
I'm sort of on an island right now, and we're getting insane spreads. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was the second deal. But sorry, what
No,
other
no. So
questions do you
that's
have?
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's your second deal, and then I mean, you've obviously done a lot more since then. Like, I mean, what you know, you're no longer a one man show. I mean, what's kind of changed along the way to allow you to scale up?
yeah. So I met Kiana Kanoa. Shout out Kiana. Um, in September of 2021 through TikTok, maybe August of 2021. And at that time, I'm still doing a little bit of brokerage. I'm still selling. I still have some stuff. I think I'd sold like a $1.3 million property, just some small stuff for cash flow.
Yeah.
And she really upped our creative reach and our making my profile look a lot more legit. It's not just me like taking selfies all the time, riding on my bike. Like she actually provided that next layer of marketing, which helped us reach more buyers and people take us more seriously. So that helped dramatically. And actually, um, that was the time I met her. Today, I've been 1 year sober. I haven't had any alcohol in a year.
Oh, cool. I
I
didn't know
met
that, man.
her and I met yeah, 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 yeah. Not a lot of people do. I posted about it today, so now people know. But
Yeah.
I met her and met a few other really, really talented people, and I'm like, dude, I just assembled such an incredible team, like out of absolute thin air. Like I need to
Yeah.
dial in and focus, and I would always take a month off from drinking alcohol, but I'm like, let me try for a year this time. Let me see what happens because I don't want to look back at my life and wonder like, what if, like
Yeah.
what would have been different, you know?
Yeah. How do you think? I mean, I stopped drinking 7 years ago, and
Oh,
I
really?
have some.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that, dude.
You didn't know that?
At all? No, I didn't know that.
I haven't had a drink in 7 years. Yeah. Almost 7 years, six and a
Respect.
half years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
no. It's so funny, man. Something in your brain happens when you go sober. It's like it makes a lot of sense now. Why? Like
yeah.
you that makes sense that you're sober. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, what changed for you, right? Like, I'm actually curious to hear because I know what changed for, I mean, I know what changed for me initially and long term. But I'm
Yeah.
curious what changed for you.
Yeah. First thing is like you definitely lose a lot of those fringe relationships. Unfortunately, like a lot of the people that like you're just not like if you're somewhere you really have to be wholeheartedly want to be there.
Yeah.
Like you actually have to want to be there. You can't disguise it with alcohol or try and make it so fun. It's like I'll like go out to these things and I'm sober, and some people don't even know it. Like there was a scenario where like one tip I have for sober people is always get there first and order a drink that sort of looks alcoholic. Because if you're going out with someone that sometimes they don't want to drink, but like there was a scenario one time where I got there, I ordered a non-alcoholic beer, and then my friend showed up, three of my friends showed up, and they got 4 rounds of non-alcoholic beer because they're like, oh, I'll
Wait,
just have what he's having.
well, how are you
Yeah,
having? And they didn't say, "Are
yeah.
you sure?"
Yeah, it was such an interesting social experiment because
Yeah.
like they started to loosen up a little bit and started like
No
joking
way.
around. I'm like, dude, no alcohol in that. I didn't say anything. They still don't know. But
Now they do.
yeah, that's one small step. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one small step is just like get there first in order. But like, so you do lose touch with some people, but the relationships you do have become so much more important, so much more
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah.
Um, I found that in terms of momentum and discipline, it's like if you have one thing that you do not move off of, like like everything else could be in movement, but this is something I don't do. It just catapults to so many other things. you know?
Yeah.
It just like, for example, I started going to the gym, I started eating better. It's like it just springboards and snowballs into so many different things that are positive for your body.
Yeah.
Um, so that's definitely a huge thing. What have you found about being sober?
I mean, I just think, you're a lot more clear-headed all the time, right?
Yeah,
Because you don't feel
yeah,
like crap ever. I mean, kind of when I was 25, I would have one drink and I'd wake up the next day and I wouldn't feel good. And one morning I woke up and I said, I just this doesn't seem worth it anymore, right? You have one drink and then you
yeah,
feel like crap the next day.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, it just not something that I feel like I need to do. It just like wasn't something that was serving me at that point in my life,
Right,
right? So I decided,
right.
I think maybe when I was younger it was, right? I wanted to go out, like I wanted to do all that stuff, but when I was 25, I'm like, it's no longer my focus. And
Yeah,
I'm with you, right? It's like I kind of show up to events early. I don't really order like non-alcoholic fake drink or whatever, but I get there early
yeah,
because that's when the good conversations happen. And once you're there for a while, you actually realize that once people are, drinking, that the conversations are very low level, right? And I just leave at that point,
yeah,
and
man.
no one
That,
notices. No one notices when you leave because they
no,
don't
the
remember.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No notices, and the next morning, be like, "Oh, I had such a great time. It was so awesome. It was so great." I'm like, "Dude, I was there. You guys were all talking over each other, and like, I don't like you guys were at a different party than I was at. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know. Definitely interesting. And it's it's great for societal like social anxiety, which I don't have, and anxiety in general. It's good
yeah,
for that, but like those aren't battles I face, so it didn't serve me either. And now I've met a lot of other, now you're another one, and now a lot of sober people. A lot of people just did it out of choice, and a lot of people had an issue, and
yeah,
like a lot of people are like I just did it because I wanted to try it, and now so many people are like, dude, like good job, congratulations, and I
yeah,
felt like if I ever went back to drinking, they'd be like disappointed in me. I'm like,
yeah,
I didn't have an issue. I just wanted to stop drinking.
yeah, yeah.
But no, yeah.
That's
So
it's interesting, right? And like, for me too, at least, like when I stopped drinking, like a lot of like at least in the beginning, like a lot of like emotions come to the surface, right? Like stuff that you were probably like never bothered to deal with because you would
yeah,
just go out, hang out and drink, and then you actually got to
yeah,
like deal with it, right? Or if you have, social anxiety about going out, I would imagine you just gotta have to figure out how to do it, which is probably
yeah,
what you should figure out anyway, right? So it helps you, I don't
right.
know, it helps you grow. Like, I mean, I'll still go out to events when people are drinking. I don't have an issue with it, but I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, 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 yeah. People be like, oh, we don't have to go here. There's a bar there. I'm like,
yeah,
it's okay. Like I'm all
it's okay.
right. Yeah. No, and yeah, and that I went out with a friend last weekend for Halloween, and he was trying not drinking. Like he drinks, and he's like, dude, I can't get out of my own way. Like I can't talk to anybody. I'm like, yeah, like you'll learn how to do it. It
Yeah,
takes about a month, but it's you learn how to do
yeah.
it.
And then you realize how many other people, when I stopped drinking, I realized how many other people in the room actually don't drink when you look
Oh
around.
yeah, so many people just are just throwing back waters. Like, oh yeah, I'm taking
Yeah,
shots with you totally. Like all the high level people are not drinking; it's water.
yeah. It's just
Um,
interesting.
and
Like
even
before that, you think everyone's drinking, but they're not. So,
nah, and even now it's like there's so people are it's really coming to light. Like a lot of people are not drinking and not tolerating that anymore.
yeah. But cool, man.
Um,
So yeah, I didn't know that about you, but
yeah,
so you,
one year
you
today.
stop drinking. You're really focused on this business. You get these teams. You said you got a lot of people on social media. Do you want to talk a little bit more about how that
Yeah, I
happens?
mean, like it's really like a mixed bag. Like, so Kiana met on social media. Demery, she's an incredible interior designer. She worked with me actually in real estate in the city. Rick, actually, so our third deal and our fourth deal happened in the same week.
Okay.
And it's just nuts. And those were a lead off TikTok. Someone's mom saw me on TikTok, and she's like, and this has been publicized now. This has been in a few different publications. She's like,
Yeah.
oh, my son does real estate up there. You should talk to him. I talked to him, and he had just purchased a mobile home, like pretty legit dude. And he's
Yeah.
like, hey, there's this deal that we love, but we can't buy it right now. I'm kind of tapped out. I'm like, oh, great. So I walked through it. I got we buy the house. We got 5 years interest only, 10% down. Got a great deal on the house.
Seller
Um,
finance or
Seller finance, yep, interest only. So just like incredible deal.
yep.
But we really helped out the seller as well. He was in a tough spot, and we then get bids on the job, and we're getting crazy high bids, crazy high bids. And I don't want to talk too much about this guy's personal life, but he was in a tough spot, and I'm like, Rick, like we started talking. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, oh, I used to be a contractor. I'm like, do you want to get back in the game? Because he hadn't been working for a little bit, and he's like,
Rick
yeah.
was the guy who
And
brought you the deal. This is the guy who brought you the
Rick was the
deal.
one who were buying his house.
Oh,
He
you were
was the
buying his
seller.
house. He was a
Yeah,
seller.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
All
he
right.
bought his house. He renovated his own house, got a crew together, and now he's my head of construction and runs about a 25-person team.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a very, very long story, but he's also another sober king, 13 years sober. Shout out Rick.
Wow.
Um, that was great. And then this kid was like, "Oh, great, you bought that one. Here's another deal the next week." And I didn't learn a lot on YouTube. I learned these deals by doing. So this
Yeah.
deal was a modular, and
Okay.
the guy was like, "Oh, we were gonna buy a seller finance, but we didn't." And I'm like, "Okay." This guy's like a finance guy, so I go in thinking I can do another deal seller finance, but he had debt on the property. So
Okay.
I we put it under contract for $110,000. I literally think it's subject. I think it's seller finance, but what I'm actually doing is subject to. So
Sure.
I assumed his debt
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
at 100,000. I assumed his $100,000 debt. Gave him $10,000, assumed debt at 3%.
Nice.
And we just finished that renovation, and we leased that to a long-term tenant for 3,300.
Okay.
That could have been an Airbnb probably for 4,000, but I'm like, look, we want to
Yeah.
be diversified. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to be 50-50. So rent that to a long-term tenant. And then after that deal, I don't even know. We just kept ripping, and then we really started finding off-market deals.
Yeah.
So those were two fantastic deals. The next one was like our biggest success, or one of our biggest successes. We got a deal off a cold call, distressed seller, listed on the open market. It didn't trade. He listed for 665 because that's what it appraised at. Um, it was delisted. We called him. He wanted 500,000. We got it under contract for 427.
Okay.
Um, we closed on it. We put in, I think like $80,000 into the renovation. So all day we're in 530. It just reappraised for $750,000. It's two different houses with a pool and a hot tub, and it'll probably gross like $125,000 in Airbnb.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the general theme we've sort of followed up
Yeah.
until up until today. Now we're sort of going more into the multi-family space, and we have a very exciting project we're about to launch in the Catskills. That's a waterfront development. So it's sort of been organic,
Okay.
man.
Talk more about sourcing some of those deals off market because a lot of people who listen here are sourcing off market deals. Were those all you were just cold calling, or how were you getting those?
Let's see. So 99-103 Old Lane. That was cold calling. Sorry, I have all my deals behind me.
No, you're
Um,
good.
uh, 41 North Franklin, 88 Pine. Those were both from TikTok. Um, 2 North Jefferson. That was a contract assignment. That was from that was like a $75,000 assignment. That was from a cold caller. Um, 286 Tommy Trail. We just launched that as an Airbnb. We got that from a woman who was in bankruptcy. That was a cold call. We got it under contract for 186. Put in about $100,000 of renovation. It'll probably grow. So all in, we're in like 300,000. It'll probably gross close to $100,000 first year as an Airbnb. That was the one that was a circular
Wow.
shape.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
was a
that
cool
one.
deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people love that, dude. I did not. I didn't. I completely undersold that. People are crazy for the circle.
Pay twice the nightly rate for a circular house. It's wild.
Yeah. Live in a dome and pay double. Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Yeah,
how are you? So
yeah.
you were just like what, pulling some lists, cold calling people? Like, how are you? Are you targeting? Are you just calling? Like,
A lot of prop stream, a lot of unlimited mailing list, which is something I saw Greg 37 just join my live. What up, Greg? You should connect with him, by the way. He's an insane wholesaler. He does a lot in
oh, cool.
in New York and Delaware. Do you know him?
No, I don't. But Greg, let's talk after if he's
Yeah, yeah,
watching.
yeah. Yeah, I think he's watching. I'll connect you guys in the chat. He's very talented. But unlimited mailing list is a great site that no one knows about. Seemingly, it's a low credit list
Yeah, I
that
remember
like
you showed it.
cold
That's
mail
on our
you.
list to do,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Um, yeah. A lot of inbound social media leads. Honestly, a lot of people just
Yeah.
DMing me, like in my market, like, "Hey, I've seen you doing stuff in this area. I want to sell my house." And people I sort of friends of friends of people I
Mhm.
grew up with, which is
So
interesting.
I
Um,
think that's super unique, right? Like I don't know many people who are sourcing off-market deals who are getting it. They're getting a lot from wholesalers from their social media
yeah,
presence, but they're not getting a lot from sellers. So like what do you think, like what kind of content are you putting out there? Like what has allowed you to do that?
I just post as much as possible about real estate, about what I'm up to, about our process, about our successful projects. Um, Yeah, and again, TikTok has helped dramatically. I mean, a lot of what I'm posting on TikTok, like maybe if someone who views this live looks at my TikTok, a lot of it is just like silly banter. But when it gets, I think this month we'll probably get about 2.5 million views, and probably like 75,000 profile visits, and then they go to
Yeah.
my Instagram. A lot of those people translate from someone just watching me live my life in New York City to an actual person that is engaging with me and wants to invest in deals.
Yeah. Yeah, you've raised some money from social media too. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, again, yeah, we have been fortunate. We are have a lot of investors in many of our deals, and 95% of them are from social media. They see what we're doing, they see our spreads. We're very transparent about the purchase price, about the renovation, about the ARV, about the gross income. I mean, it's very black and white,
Yeah.
and I try not to violate any antitrust or
Sure.
whatever, but like I'd
Try.
say, hey, like, if you want to be involved, send me a DM.
I think that's fine. If you want to be involved is okay. I don't think you can say
Yeah,
other stuff.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think if
yeah.
you want to be, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know shit either, but
Right.
if you want,
Yeah.
you
Neither
want
one
to
of
be
us are attorney.
involved, sounds okay to me.
We'll have to ask your uncle. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to ask my uncle. Um, cool, man. And then talk about that A-frame project that you guys are
Yeah.
working on, because I think that's a pretty cool project.
So that one's like literally hot off the press. I don't want to give too much information, but essentially, we got a pretty remarkable deal on a waterfront property. Um, just it was a distressed seller. We probably got a 50% below market. Um, Essentially, what we'll be doing is like as interest rates go higher, we um, have noticed, like, obviously with Airbnbs. So the way I look at it is more and more people are entering the Airbnb market. It becomes more and more flooded. So in our market, there's a lot of single family homes. So
Yeah,
that's why the Circle House is doing so well, is because everyone who goes to go on Airbnb, it's just a bunch of houses that look like a house. This thing that looks
sure.
like a dome, people go crazy for it. So
Yeah,
I looked at A-frames in other markets, and there's a lot in North Carolina, South Carolina, but there's not a whole lot in the Hudson Valley.
yeah,
And in a recession, people still travel. They just spend way less money. They're not going to Orlando. They're not going to Joshua Tree. They're like, hey, honey, we don't have a lot of money. Why don't we just go upstate for the weekend and get out of the city? So it
yeah,
plays into a lot of the trends we're seeing right now. In addition to, another thing with COVID is that like people just want to get out into nature. People just want to walk around and hike on a trail and walk with their dog.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's super interesting. So yeah, we just found that these A frames are the highest ROI possible. we're probably going to source our material from Estonia, believe it or not.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, between the infrastructure and the build out, it's probably about on average probably like $250,000 or like probably like $450 a square foot to build ground
Okay.
up. But
Yeah.
we get the land at an incredible price, and we can expect each one of these A-frames to generate close to $100,000 a year in income with an incredible view.
Yeah.
Um, we'll also be building out, further infrastructure to allow these residents to canoe in the creek front. So just to
Okay.
add the experimental element. Yeah.
So you bought this and you're putting like what is it 4 or 5 if I remember right? A-frames on
We're
this.
we're
There's
starting with,
multiple lots in the
yeah,
deal, right?
exactly. We're starting with 4 A-frames. We're going to get those off the ground, start cash flowing, and then we're probably going to add a second and a third tier. Overall, it'll probably like a $3 to $4 million raise for the entire
Yeah.
project. But just very preliminary numbers. The return profile is looking ridiculous, so we're
Yeah.
very excited about it. And
What do
it's
you
also close to a mountain. It's close to a skiing mountain as well, so it's like it's both summer and winter. A lot of these areas in Hudson Valley, it's only summer, but this has sort of both going for it, which is incredible.
what are you sourcing from Estonia? What materials go into these things?
The materials for the A-frame. So we
Like the
found
wood?
that, yeah, believe it or not, wood prices right now are extremely expensive
Yeah.
in the United States, and I don't. It's something I don't know. My head of construction knows all about it. So we've been sourcing a lot of our wood because like the Canadian wood, I guess, is like way cheaper than the United States wood. Something to do with the. I don't want to get too political. It's something to do with the oil reserves.
Okay. But you but you
Yeah,
source
yeah,
your
yeah,
wood internationally for your U.S. projects.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
From Alberta, Canada. Yeah,
Yeah. One thing I always like to touch on here is, it's so important in the world of, real estate in general is sales, right? And I feel like you've always, since I've known you, you've always been a great salesman. And I think when you're doing off-market deals, especially, that comes a lot into it. You're negotiating a lot with people. There's not many intermediaries. Like, how did you get to that point of being so good at sales and negotiation?
that's a very good question, Mike, and thank you for that. I don't know, just like I think I innately want to add value to every transaction. Like, it all just goes back to adding value. I see, like, for example, we'd meet owners, and I would one of the ways that originally get accounts or landlords is I would see people who are marketing properties poorly online. I would skip trace the contact and call the landlord directly and be like, look, you could be getting 10% more, but your agent's doing a terrible job.
Yeah,
So just leading with value, leading
yeah,
with value. And one of my favorite quotes is in real estate is like, decisions in real estate are made from one of two spots, greed or fear.
yeah.
So you just have to know, like, there's now I have my head of acquisitions is very, very talented with acquisitions, and he knows, like, you want to keep the same temperament as that person, and you want to keep power and know where they're coming from. Just a lot of those small, like, sales techniques that you get over time.
Yeah. Well, he's a guy from the car business, right? If I remember right, when him and I had a
Exactly.
conversation.
Exactly. Oh, he's so deadly, dude. He's so talented. It's wild. It's
Yeah.
crazy. You spoke with him a little bit. You got to see him go live and how he like how like I told you, like, he will learn where someone's from, like their origin or whatever, their ethnicity, and there's certain numbers that are lucky in certain, like, cultures. So what our offers will be based on what numbers are lucky in
So
that culture.
wild.
Like, just randomly, and it works. They'll call us. They'll be like, "Oh, like, I'm accepting this because, like, there's 222 in the number." Like, it's
Oh,
insane.
that's so wild.
Yeah,
That's wild, dude.
yeah,
And now,
yeah,
obviously things have changed, are changing a lot with the market everywhere.
yeah.
What are you seeing in Hudson Valley?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of transactional volume, and it's just like we're just leveraging our expertise. We go to these, these realtors. Honestly, it's a lot of like just like people a few years older than my mother, like in their 60s or 70s, and we like go with these complex like acquisition structures, and they just don't know what to do. But
Yeah,
these properties aren't selling. So there's going to be a huge opportunity for subject to and seller finance when these people
yeah,
aren't able to get out from their mortgages and they need to transact. If we go in, we'll have to educate these realtors and these people on what this is, and
yeah,
just very bluntly explain, like, I'm not lining up debt at 8% to buy this property. That completely
yeah,
crushes my basis. I will, however, line up debt at 3%, take your debt and give you the difference and close in this property. Do you want to go
yeah,
to this property or not?
yeah. Right.
So a lot of that. We have a short sale right now where the bank just wanted too much, and I realized, like, this guy has debt lined up at 4%, 30 year. Why don't we just
Yeah,
pay the difference and assume the debt? Like,
yeah,
that makes way more sense.
sure. Yeah,
Makes
instead of you
more
going out
sense.
and getting an 8% interest rate and paying way more.
No,
Just-
yeah, I'm not doing that. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So that's really the only way, unless it's an insane. Like, we have a 4 unit under contract right now that we bought for $300,000. We'll probably put in about $400,000 of capex. When we're done,
yeah,
it will probably be worth about 1.5 million. So like
yeah,
those type of deals, he didn't want to do seller finance, and I'm like, all right,
sure.
you're giving us this property for a song, so we'll do the bridge loan and the higher debt. But generally speaking, that's how we're doing deals in this market, and it's complete. It's dead in most markets. There's still activity, but it's
Yeah,
like right now where we're at is the sell. I mean, I think you said this as well. The sellers haven't adjusted yet to what their
yeah,
property is actually worth. They're still in 6 months ago. That's the land they're in. But eventually, they're going to go from making a decision from greed to fear. So we're just waiting for fear. That's all.
yeah. We had the October for us, at least in our business, is when that changed. Actually,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
the realistic
Um,
realistic expectations started to return, and they said,
I
"Well, my
just got a
property might be
question.
worth less in January." Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I just got a question from a guy on my Instagram live. He said,
Yeah.
"Not so familiar with subject to, but what if the loan is unassumable?" And I would just say, dude, I'm not an attorney. I don't know. But
Get, get a lawyer.
yeah, you should talk to your lawyer on that one. And if you have a good one, they'll figure something out. But I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
mean,
want
I
to give
can
you the
kind of give them some basic insight about it, right?
yeah,
Yes, most mortgages have due on sale clauses.
yeah,
Are they enforced? Almost never. As long it's
yeah.
not a requirement to call the loan when it sells. It's an option. And
Say that again.
oftentimes, there's a due on sale clause in a lot of mortgage. As often, it's not a requirement that the bank calls the loan due when the
Yeah.
home sells. It's an option that they can exercise. If you're making the payments, do you
Uh,
really think they're monitoring if title changed?
right.
Also,
Right.
keep in mind that the guy who originated the debt often is not the guy who owns the debt, and there's probably been 2 to 3, sales of that debt in between. And
That's a
why
very
does the
good point.
last guy who's getting his payments when he bought that debt, why would he want to not get those payments
Yeah.
anymore? He's not an originator.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you got to think about alignment of incentives. Sure, there's some risk, right? But I mean, if you're buying it
Right.
at the right price and it still would be okay, then
Right.
might be a risk worth taking, but I'm also not a lawyer. So
Exactly.
I,
Exactly.
I, I would have my
Exactly.
lawyer do it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, he responded. He said, "Great, great points. As long as it's being paid. Exactly, man. Exactly.
yeah, for the most part, like I'm sure there's exceptions, and I don't want to say
Right,
everything, but I have friends
right.
who've got dozens of
Yeah,
these subject to properties and haven't had a single one called. So um,
yeah, 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 yeah,
so far
yeah,
so good. Um,
yeah.
um, cool, man. Well, you were well, I guess outside of the subject to stuff, um, what else are you adapting in your business with this market change?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, just different. Obviously modeling with a higher interest rate. And then a slower
Yeah,
return of capital to investors. Like for example, we have a 2 year subject to on one of our deals, and we're going to extend that. We're going to push that out. For 4 to 5 years. So just being moldable. Um, Obviously, we're doing a little bit more some long term tenants now, um,
Mhm.
just so we're a little bit more diversified. Um, but we haven't felt it yet in terms of all our tenants are current, all our Airbnbs are booked every single weekend until February. So
Mhm.
I haven't really seen the smoke yet, and I think again that just has a lot to do with just getting very good basis on deals and
Sure. Yeah.
just a lot of people leaving New York and moving to other markets. And for example, it's like okay, commercial real estate in New York is way down. Now people can work 3 days a week from a different area, or maybe more. Like our primary demographic of our tenants is people who work in New York and work there 1 day a week, but want to live in the country.
Interesting. For your long-term tenants, that's the
Yeah,
demographic. Interesting.
yeah,
And your short-term rental rates pretty much the same as last year up in upstate New York?
yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's and again, I get these articles sent to me all the time, and I just respond with a full calendar booked. I'm like, what do you want from me? I appreciate you're looking out for me, but like we're diversified, you know?
Also, like
Yeah.
those articles that talk about the state of real estate over the course of the entire nation, in my opinion, are BS, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, short-term
Yeah.
rentals in
Yeah. Yeah.
Jacksonville have taken a hit, right? But in upstate New York, they
Yeah.
sounds like they haven't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's market specific,
Yeah. I haven't. I at least I have not seen anything. Every single weekend, about $1,200 to $1,300. Leave 6 White Claws in the fridge. Rinse and repeat.
Well,
Like,
you're really a great host. You give 'em White Claws.
oh yeah. Oh, I'm a super host, baby.
Yeah, it's because after they drink those White Claws, they want to give you a good review.
Hell yeah, man. No, we do some small things like we have StayFi, which is a thing that anytime they use our Wi-Fi, we get all their data, we get their email, their phone numbers, their contacts, so we can cross market to
Yeah,
them. Professional photos for all our properties. Anyone who has an Airbnb, I would say spend the $4 on the virtual assistant to do the sunset photo edit on your photos. That return on investment is insane.
I was like
Like
editing the
like
photo to put like a big sunset in
yeah,
the
you edit
background.
it so it looks like there's a sunset in the background, and people just
Oh,
I don't know, like literally, it's a tangible difference between a regular photo and the $4 sunset photo.
I think that's an amazing tip. That's a great use
Yeah,
of money. Wow, I never even thought
yeah,
about that,
no,
dude. I had tons of Airbnbs. Shoot. Like,
I know. If you look at I can't really share my screen, but if you look at our Airbnb, it's the cover photo is four different photos and like a branded thing with the sunset. So it's again, it's like we're not an institution, but we act like an institution amongst all these mom and pops trying to rent their summer homes out.
sure. Yeah, you're a
So it's
professional
pretty,
operator.
pretty easy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Talk to me a little bit. I mean, you got a 25-man construction team right now.
Yeah.
How did you go about building that? Because I know guys have been working for years on building their construction team, and you spun this thing up in months. I mean, half a year.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like a lot of it was just jumping in Facebook chats, and once you got one good guy, like really, our head of construction is he really took that on. We
Yeah,
helped him out in the spot he was in, and then he just ran with it. He had an electrician who had three guys. He found it's so funny, man. It's like we have one Jamaican crew, we have
hmm,
one crew from Mexico, and we have one crew from white guys. Like there's a bunch of white guys, and like I didn't build it that way. That's just how they came, and like that's who they work with. So I'm like, all right,
yeah,
dude, whatever works for you guys. So,
yeah,
yeah, man, and it's really just word of mouth, and you provide a constant paycheck every week, and we pay them well, and we call them every once in a while, like, hey, like you're doing a great job, like keep it up, man, like and
yeah,
talk about the future, or maybe a deal we find we'll give to them, like that we're not going to buy. So just being a
yeah.
reasonable human being.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that when it comes to construction, right? They forget that like you got to treat them right. It's
Tough
a
job.
hard job,
Yeah,
real hard
yeah, yeah.
job. So do these guys all work for you full time? You got enough projects to keep 25 guys rocking and rolling, or
Yeah, yeah.
wow,
We have one, two, three, um, Yeah, we have about five jobs going right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Five
nice to
different
get
houses.
25 guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you do big. I mean, I've seen your renovations. I mean, you do big renovations generally.
yeah. We want to do an institutional grade and build it right and build it as nice as possible.
Yeah.
Do these guys work in the Adirondacks? I just got that question in my live. I'm sorry, they don't go that north. I gotta pull them from the city a lot of times, so I don't think I can make them go another 5 hours. But maybe
A
I don't know.
lot of your guys are from the city and they go out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So what I
Wow.
do is a lot of them live in the Bronx, and
Okay.
a lot of them live in the Bronx. So a lot of times I don't have bookings from Monday through Friday at my Airbnbs. So they'll stay at my Airbnb, which they love, and then
Wow.
they will. Oh, my phone just died, and I had 5 people on my live, but whatever.
Whatever.
They will. Yeah, it's all good. Peace, people. They will. They'll stay in one of my houses and just work all week, and they love the house.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so dude, I think one thing that I wanted to touch on is like, you talk about kind of this, this story, right? You come to New York City, you know, you're just like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm staying in this people's apartment, walking their dog so I can stay there for free,
yeah,
like, cooking them meals, whatever, kind of shit hits the fan when COVID comes in New York and you're basically scraping out of no money and that like it seems like the trend though through all this is like you have a great mindset. You're like, all right, my back's against the wall. Like some people are like, my back's against the wall. Oh, what am I gonna do? I think one thing you and I have in common is our backs against the wall. Like, let's freaking go. Like it's do or
yeah,
die. How do
yeah.
you cultivate and maintain that mindset in times like that?
Dude, it's honestly like perspective. Like I grew up with a very loving family, but wasn't very financially set off, and I understand the advantages of being a white male. Like I'm very clear. I understand that, but at the same time, my second apartment. I've never like. I've only like recently started talking about this. Like my second apartment in New York, in East Harlem. I moved in. I had no money when I moved in, and I'm there for like a week, and I actually let me backtrack on the story. So I have a little bump on my back. This is
Okay.
probably like 6 months ago, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "Oh, like what is that? Oh, you think you have something on your back?" And I look at it. I'm like, "Oh no, I know exactly what that is." So I had moved in this apartment, and I didn't have any money, and like a weekend, I got bed bugs, and
Oh,
yeah, and I literally only had 2 duffel bags of clothes, and I'm just like, I just need to stay at this house until I make enough money to move. And and once you face a scenario like that, all this other
yeah,
stuff is nothing. It's just
yeah,
it's fucking we're chilling, we're made in the shade. So it's really just perspective, man. Like I know you see at me face level, it looks like I haven't been through a lot of shit. But like I've been jumped. I've had my leg broken in half, and being on a 5th story walk up and having your 80-year-old neighbor pass you, and like you're not able to get out of bed in the morning. It's like all this stuff. It's like this is fun. This is fine. I can take the hits.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
can I can take the blows. So it's just
yeah,
it's just about life and having perspective and not having everything given to you and working hard for it.
yeah. I think you mentioned earlier though, you journal every day. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about how that
Yeah.
maybe that helps you with your mindset?
Yeah, I mean, just power of the pen. Writing down what the fuck you want to get out of life. I think there's an inherent value in doing that because you look back at previous journals. Like I look at journals from a year ago.
Yeah,
Think about that. Like a year ago was I had just sold the the hotel deal, the assignment, and since then
yeah,
we've purchased like 15 homes. So it's like life. People really underestimate how how. So there's two ways to put this. People underestimate how much you can do in a year, but they underestimate how much you can do in like 3 to 5 years. Or at the same token, like people really underestimate how difficult it is to get your foot in the door, and then they underestimate how quickly you can grow within an organization.
sure. That's good.
So
I'm
yeah,
smiling at that because that's one of my favorite quotes that people overestimate what they can do
yeah,
in a year, but underestimate. I've heard in
oh
10,
yeah,
but it's all the same. It's all the same.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, 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 yeah.
the behavior that you do every day consistently.
Yeah, just doing something for an uncommon amount of time. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, man, and then you're doing the agent thing for a while. Is there anything you took from being an agent that you feel has helped you in the investment side?
Honestly, like not wanting to go back to that world, not wanting to wait in front of
Right.
a house for 45 minutes in the rain and have someone cancel on you or get to the end of a deal for $2,000 and someone ghosts you. Just the reality of, oh, I can do this and make money at this and work from home and drive this much value. Like this is a way better life than that. Like
Yeah.
that's I could talk freely about this to you because you know it's like you're tethered to a certain area and you're trading your time for money. And I remember every Saturday morning someone would call me at 9 a.m. Hey, I'm here. I'm outside of the apartment. At open houses every single weekend. And at that time I was drinking, I'm hungover. I don't want to be there. Like that's one thing. It's like, okay, if I keep doing this, you're telling me I never have to do that again. Like what then
Yeah.
what's next? What's the next level after this, you know? I'll probably look back at what I'm doing now and be like, "Damn, I did that for that long? That's
Yeah.
crazy."
Yeah. Yeah. Walking up 40 flights of East Village walk-ups every Saturday. I
Oh
remember
my
those days.
god, with moms from Long Island. Oh, this is horrible. Oh my gosh, how do you guys do this? Like, then don't live
How do you
here.
guys
Then
how do you
go
guys
go
do
go to
this?
Murray Hall. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's still
Like
$4,500. So whatever you want to do.
anything. Yeah, you can't like say anything and you're like, oh yeah, like yeah, we have options in these other areas. You just have to take it. But now I don't have
Yeah.
to deal with that anymore, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Being in control of the deal is a different
Exactly.
perspective.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Different thing.
But, well, there's always two questions I like to ask at the end. And the
Yeah.
first one, and you can share a tenant story if you want, because I know you've dealt with a lot of tenants in your time. But what is the weirdest or most uncomfortable situation you've ever experienced with a seller or a tenant?
I mean, we see all different types of shit. Like a home we just bought. Um, a home we just bought. There was like a sniper and like several guns there with silencers. I'm like, oh, this is kind of crazy. Pot plants everywhere. But like, whatever. That's not that crazy. One time we had this showing. It was we had the exclusive in the building above the Russian bathhouse. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So did I tell you this story?
Oh no, but I love that place. Used to go there all the time as a kid.
Oh, bro. So it was the 3 bed in the top floor. It was like where the owner of the bathhouse used to live. It was sweet layout, like 1,200 square feet. And at the time, it was a big 2 bed. And we, of course, flexed it and we rented the 3 Brads and Chads. But at the time, the owner was like, hey, like the guy living there, his friend's there right now. I rented this apartment. He's like a trust fund guy. I couldn't say no to him because he had so much money, but like, just like watch out. But it was his friend. So we go up there. This guy's name is Ron. Super nice guy. Probably like 60, 65. You could tell in his day he was like a really handsome guy. Really good looking dude. And he was cool. So cool. I'm like, yo, what's up, Ron? What's going on, man? And I'm like, yo, we're gonna be here tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. to show this house. Could you just like keep it a little clean? And I was super early in my career. It was like my fifth deal, so we dropped them a bottle of wine, gave my business card, like just keep it clean, whatever. It was a Friday night, but a Saturday morning showing. So we come back the next morning, Saturday morning, and first off, we're in a bathhouse. We're in the sauna in that lobby area, and it's like a French couple with a stroller, just not
Oh, on the
demographic that
walk
you.
up in the East Village?
Yeah,
What?
and a walk up in East Village, like so bad. So we walk up these like old rickety stairs, and they're like, "Oh, like we kind of like here. Like we lived in Paris. Like there's a lot of walk ups there." I'm like, "All right, cool, all right." And
Okay.
we open the door, and no one's home. But we walk in first, and there's just cocaine everywhere. Like there is
Stop.
a massive, like massive, like there's like a lot like residue And I was just like wiping tables. There was dollar bills like everywhere, like by the bedside. There was glasses of wine. It was insane. Like I looked at my business card, it had the residue on it. He had a wild party. There's this young French couple, and I'm like, and we're just cleaning it up like as we go, walking through the home. It was chaos. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I think he maybe had like a board game night the other night. Like I think he had a few friends over. Like, don't mind us. So yeah, it was crazy.
So did they take it?
No, no shot.
You never,
Yeah,
you
no.
only in New York. Only in New York, you have to ask that question though, because sometimes it'd be like so
Yeah,
desperate. They're like, "I'll take it."
exactly.
You're like, "What?"
No, we rented to 3 dudes who actually lived there for 4 or 5 years. They're cool guys. I like those guys.
Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so final question I always ask everyone is, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing that you know now, what was one piece of advice you would give yourself when either you got into real estate or you were looking for your first deal?
I met so many people at these walk-ups. I know so many people in New York, but not at a lot of these people I didn't get a chance to connect with, and you can't connect with everybody, but
Yeah,
just keep better track, a better CRM of all the people you meet because you're out there meeting 30, 40 people a day. To From your perspective, they're just a person you're showing a home. To them, you're like a figure, you're like a person. They're coming to you for help. So just do a better job of connecting. And now they're talking about TikTok maybe shutting it down. So like I'm trying to channel as many TikTok viewers and followers as possible over to my Instagram. So just do a better job with data and connecting with that. What else? Yeah, I think that's a good answer.
that's a pretty good answer, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thanks for coming on today, man. Really
Yeah, bro.
appreciate it. I think a lot of people got a lot of value from this.
I hope so. When does this come out? Or it's live. It's already out.
It's live. It's already out.
Oh, nice. Wow. Love that.
Yeah.
Skip the step.